Hey everyone, and welcome to 1.21 Gigawatts. I am Peter, that is Matt. We talk about movies on this show, and it's, I guess, something of a tri-annual event, where now we have Marvel
By
movies.
now.
Yeah, that's
Pretty
often.
pretty soon it's going to be a quarter annual event.
I think at that point you just say quarterly. You don't even say, you don't even say
That's
annual,
true.
you just say
That's true.
quarterly.
It would be quarter.
Yeah,
Man, we're stacking up.
I know. But hey, so we got a new Marvel movie, new Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, and it is Black Panther. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to discuss it. We'll start spoiler free as we always do. We'll give you warnings somewhere in the middle before we jump into the spoilers. But that's what we're going to do. So, I guess before we even give our general opinion of the movie, just sort of where are we with Marvel movies right now? Right?
I'm still in. I know.
Yeah,
I know some people aren't.
I feel like for context, I just want to just reiterate. You've probably heard me say this if you've seen like the Thor review or you've heard me talk about these before. Yeah, I've been.
The Civil War review, the Doctor Strange review, all of them recently except for Spider-Man. Uh,
Like, I'm sorry, Matt. I'm sorry that I'm just not lapping up the mouse's
that's,
feces like it's candy. All
I,
right.
and I shouldn't have said Doctor Strange because that one I wasn't even big on. But
Yeah.
you kind of like the Guardians movies, but I was finding ones that you weren't so major on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't hate any of the ones last year. It was just,
No.
I just wasn't like. I've stopped being excited for Marvel movies. They're kind of at a point now where I'll go in, they'll be fine, but they're kind of. They're like a bit of fast food, and but more so than they ever have been, where I will just forget about them afterwards and never really care about it again. But Spider-Man was the exception last year. That surprised me because it had heart, it had a solid character arc, and it felt like it was doing something different. So getting Black Panther, it's in this weird place for me because Black Panther's a character that I don't really know much about. He's popped up in the odd Avengers book that I've read, but I've never really known much about him. No attachment to him whatsoever. Unlike Doctor Strange, though, I don't have a negative outlook on him either. Doctor Strange,
Right.
I already actively kind of disliked. Whereas
Fair
Black
enough. Fair
Panther,
enough.
I mean, he was fighting in Civil War, of course. He had a part in that, but like other than that, like my exposure to him is minimal at best. What this did have going for it, going into it as a movie, was Ryan Coogler, who directed Creed, Fruitvale Station, fantastic director. And obviously the cast, Michael B. Jordan got in there because obviously Coogler's worked with him a bunch of
Always.
times.
As soon as Coogler was announced, and so we already know that Chadwick Boseman was T'Challa, the Black
Yeah,
Panther.
we've done that for a because they've revealed him like a long time
Early.
ago. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Like even I think before they announced Civil War was the title, he said he was going to appear in a Captain America film.
yeah, maybe
But
right. Yeah,
yeah, so when they announced Coogler, I was trying to figure out how he was going to get Michael B. Jordan in there because he's two for two with him, and they just work well together.
yeah. Well, as the
So when
villain,
he was announced
obviously.
here as Killmonger, I was like, okay, this could be definite fun because I hadn't seen Michael B. play a heavy as of yet. He's always that sympathetic guy. So yeah, that was cool. Who else is in this cast? Lupita Nyong'o.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which,
Who of course has become fairly well known recently. Daniel Kaluuya, who was in Get Out last year, of course. I mean, I knew him from an episode of Black Mirror, which, funny enough, T'Challa's sister in this, Letitia Wright, it was actually bugging me as I was watching this what I knew her from,
yeah,
and she was actually in the last episode of Black Mirror, like the last episode of season
Oh.
4. She's in that,
nice.
and
That's
it
good.
never, and she's such a different personality in this. It never quite clicked I couldn't quite remember what I'd seen her in, but I knew her face.
Pretty versatile then. If
And
you
that's-
didn't recognize her.
Yeah, so that was I mean, now that I know, I can see it easily.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, like so she was in that. So and speaking of faces, it was Danai Gurira's character, Okoye. She. I was like, I know her face from something as well. I didn't see a lot of her in the show, but she was Michonne in The Walking Dead, which is
Yep.
what I think most people will probably know her from. And obviously you got Martin Freeman, Andy Serkis reprising their roles.
Yeah, that's just when they're in the room together and it's Gollum and Bilbo. It just that cracks me up. That how far these franchises have begun. That you have the Hobbit people in all the same universe now, again. You
Did,
know?
did I have to crack the Tolkien white guys joke?
You should have. You should have. That's a solid joke.
It's a pretty good
Okay.
joke. I
And
don't
it's
even
so
like
good.
Lord of the Rings, but it's a pretty good
Yeah.
joke. I'm not gonna
Oh, it
lie.
is a good joke. And with Serkis, I'm so used to just seeing him in mocap or hearing his voice that it's good to see him doing an actual role where he gets to, just be larger than life without CGI. Although here he's, kind of enhanced by CGI. But yeah, no, not like usual. Like, he's not Caesar.
Only his
He's
arm.
definitely
Because
yeah,
if you recalled correctly, his arm got cut off in Avengers: Age of Ultron.
yeah.
just to remind you of that. But hey, so you got a cast, you got a director who's very exciting, and then the buzz started to come out. It was like, okay, right, so people are liking this. The buzz from the premiere, and then the review, the early reviews coming out from the written sites and whatnot. I was like, okay, right, okay. I'm a bit more, because I think I was indifferent, and then I heard the buzz, and I was like, okay, right, I'm kind of optimistic now. I'm going in with a.
Well, I just remember you. I don't want to say throwing a fit because that's too strong, but you found out who Killmonger was in the last trailer you had seen, and you're just like, oh, so it's Phase One again.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
kind of back out.
yeah. My complaint, yeah, when I saw the trailer and I saw like Killmonger's kind of eventual suit, I was like, oh, so he's just evil Black Panther, because he's got a Black Panther suit by the end of the movie, and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, great. So this is like Yellow Jacket, where it's evil Ant-Man, or it's evil Iron Man with Ironmonger.
And I was like, let's just trust in Coogler. Let's trust in Michael B. Okay. And you're like, no, this is, man, I know the formula. I know the formula, and I'm prepping for it.
Well, let me counter that earlier cynicism with Killmonger might be the best villain in the MCU. In the movies.
Man.
In the movies.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm not counting, Kingpin because we got so much. Or
I'm not
even
even
Purple
I'm not
Man.
even talking about him. I'm talking about Ada and Shield. Ada's the best villain in the MCU from
Okay.
Shield.
I'm outside.
Yeah.
I'm outside of Shield.
She-
I
she-
haven't watched for a while.
Yeah, she's my favorite by far. But
Okay.
Killmonger might be the best in the MCU.
See, I'm still riding the Vulture train from Spider-Man.
Vulture was better than most. Admittedly, let's be honest here, the bar's pretty low for the villains in the MCU.
It is, and it's the problem I think with most superhero movies, because even over at DC, where we haven't had a lot of stellar movies, the villains don't really pop in any of them either. So,
Well, in these new movies, but you go back to the Nolan trilogy and like,
yeah, I don't count those as part of those, because to me
okay, we're just
the Nolan
talking-
trilogy surpasses a simple comic book film. So, but yeah, it's a problem, and especially with Marvel, where they attract all of these big name actors that you're like, oh, I can see them, Mads Mikkelsen as a great villain, and then he's kind of wasted.
Mads Mikkelsen, what's his
Christopher
face?
Eccleston.
Eccleston from Doctor Who. Yeah, like Malik, it was such a waste of him.
Yeah.
It was just they could have had a stunt man or whoever just show up for that role.
I'm trying to think of some others. Ronan from Guardians, he was kind of there. I mean, he had some peaks and valleys, but most of them are valleys.
It didn't bother me as much in the first Guardians that the villain was weak, because there was so much else going on. But yeah, like it falls into the trap. Like most of the MCU movies have really weak villains. It's just kind of it's a running joke at this point. But no, I think he's good, and we'll talk mostly in spoilers about why I think he's good, but a lot of it is to do with a vastly superior motivation and more complex motivation compared to most villains in superhero movies, where it's not just, I want to take over the world, or I want to destroy the world, or I'm evil, haha. There's actually a complex motivation that's rooted in the actual real-world elements, which actually makes them far more interesting than just about any other villain in the MCU.
Earlier today, I saw a meme that said MCU reviving, or what was the exact wording? Basically, reviving Human Torches since 2011, and it was Michael B. Jordan as Human Torch and Captain America as Human Torch, and I was like, oh man, astute. Like you come over to the MCU and they have something for you, but yeah, Michael B. was so good. I love that guy.
No,
I watch just about everything he's in.
He's pretty great in this. Yeah, so you got a good villain. As for the movie overall, to give sort of general impressions, I thought it was pretty good. I think there's... Oh, it's perfect. There's a couple of nitpicks I can have here or there. But it made me... I got into the character, I got into the world of Wakanda, and the story of this city, and the overall story of the movie. And again, it's kind of core messages that it had. I actually thought was really strong. It was unique to the movie as well. It wasn't like it was just doing what 5 other MCU movies have done up to this point. It's one of the more unique movies in the franchise. I mean, it connects to everything overall, but for the most part, it's fairly standalone. There's not a whole lot of...
Yeah. I mean, there's a little bit of references to what had happened before in Civil War, because that's where he was introduced. But other than that, it as standalone, like you're not. It helps that they're not actively searching for Infinity Gems or dealing with cosmic shenanigans. So yeah, where I felt like Spider-Man was the same way. Like, yeah, it referenced the event that led to the destruction of New York and Avengers. But other than that, outside of Tony Stark, of course, it kind of, is its own story.
I mean, Spider-Man had a lot more connections to the MCU, but I think it's okay if you have connections. I wouldn't necessarily downgrade it for that. I think the difference with Spider-Man and Black Panther is that they both have a very unique story to tell on their own that has like a beginning, middle, and end. It doesn't feel like you're shortchanged because it's teasing things for other movies. Where that's actually one of my bigger problems with, say, Civil War, is that I feel like it's too much a part of an overall serial and doesn't really work on its own as anything. That's part of why I feel underwhelmed with that movie, because I remember seeing it and just feeling like, okay, that was like the middle episode of a season of a TV show that I just went in the theater and watched.
And that's always a fair. Unlike Civil War, Winter Soldier, they're all starting to meld in my brain. All these names, all these. Winter Soldier felt like.
Yeah, this is like movie 17 or 18.
Yeah, we're up there.
Something like that. Around that number.
And Infinity War, the big grand finale, that's been 10 years in the making, is just around the corner. So, like, I can't believe...
the first half of the finale. That's not the whole finale.
Yeah, I know, but...
Because even though they're not calling it Infinity War Parts 1 and 2 anymore, they still film back to back, and I still think... I think they're going to end up calling it Infinity Gauntlet or something like that. Like, it'll be like a clear connective tissue. They're just not calling it Part 1 and 2. I'm still kind of expecting Infinity War to end with like the heroes losing or something,
Well, yeah, it's the hero's journey thing where they have to lose everything before they can climb their way back. And weirdly with Black Panther, that's this tone that you're describing, where it kind of stands alone, but it still connects a little. It's kind of what I've always wanted for Thor. We all know I'm a huge Thor fan, and with Dark World, I felt they missed that opportunity to kind of flesh out Asgard and its realm and get into some of that with the tones. And here, with all the stuff for Wakanda, it's the first time we're being introduced to it. And Coogler and company handle it so well. Like, this mythology's instantly, I mean, at least for me, it instantly connected. And it's summed up in the first, 3 minutes of the movie.
Because they set up the country, and obviously it's very advanced. That's the whole premise, is that because of the vibranium that landed there aeons ago, they've built their culture around it. The 5 tribes kind of formed the country, and because of that, it's more advanced. But they've been hiding, because that's actually something I didn't necessarily know about Wakanda before I watched this movie, is that it was hidden. I assume it was at some point in the Marvel comics as well, before they made the choice to reveal themselves to the world. But it's hidden. And like, even Martin Freeman's character at one point, he's like, "Nah, Wakanda's a third world country. What are you talking about?" And like, he's dismissive of it until he wakes up there, of course, and there's like he sees all the wonders of what it is.
He's in a sci-fi movie, and it's just like, what is going on here?
Yeah. So Wakanda's definitely interesting. I think the action is typically pretty good. Unfortunately, I think the last big fight falls into a big CG hole.
Yeah, I think his hand-to-hand stuff, Coogler is really adept at filming, especially after Creed, because I really enjoyed the hand-to-hand, hand-on-hand. It's completely different. Hand-to-hand combat stuff. The more the Black Panther, like the chase scene in South Korea, and the chase scene in the jungle, they felt similar. And they had the same shooting style, was kind of all over the place. I couldn't really see what was going on so well.
I enjoyed the car chase quite a bit, actually. I felt like the big final fight when they're both in their Panther suits and they're fighting and it essentially became 100% CG for most of the fight, and it felt kind of artificial and fake, in a way that was kind of a shame, because I get, obviously you've got a lot of fancy like parkour elements to Black Panther, where he's like jumping around and he's jumping on cars and stuff, and I really like that stuff. And obviously there's some CG in there because you can't just have the actor leap that high and so on. But when it became the two of them fighting, and they're like, at one point they're falling through the air punching, and they're just both CG characters. It was giving me like Matrix Reloaded kind of. It looks better than that. Don't get me wrong, but I'm saying it gave me those vibes where it was like. Just this almost cartoon compared to everything else. It doesn't ruin the movie, but I think it's a worthwhile complaint to mention. I think if I'm going to give it any other criticisms, I do think W'Kabi, Daniel Kaluuya's character, is quite thin. He's kind of there to just serve. He's there to serve a purpose. It's kind of obvious what his purpose is as soon as you've had like 2 scenes with him. And obviously at that point I thought they were going to do more to develop it, but they never really do. He just kind of is what he is, and that's it.
Yeah, he's that guy, he serves his point in the story, and you see Kaluuya and you're used to him from Black Mirror and Get Out, and you're like, oh, he's gonna have a big meaty part, and then you're kind of like, oh, okay, well, he wasn't bad. It was just the part.
And I think it feels especially thin because it essentially just exists so that there's more for the final fight. It's like so the final fight's not just Killmonger. So there's more. Like he's got like an army that is kind of involved, and it's like, okay, right. So that's why this is here. So that felt a little bit thin to me. However, though, the rest of the characters, like all of the I think Black Panther's sister Shuri, Letitia Wright's character, she. As soon as about halfway through this, it dawned on me, like, okay, so she's the Groot of this movie, and what I mean by that is that she's the character that most people in the public are going to latch on to and love, because she's very likable, she's very funny, she's constantly like poking fun at her brother, she's constantly doing all this stuff. She's basically the Q for him. She makes all the tech. She's got a lab and she's building all the suits and stuff. And
so basically the way I look at T'Challa. He's a king, right? But he's kind of like Batman and James Bond in the same person. In that, because he has some of this duty-bound stuff that Bond really doesn't have, that ties a little bit more to Batman. And then so I looked at Shuri and then Okoye, like the head of his guard. They were kind of like his Alfred,
Yeah, they split the duties. Yeah, you're kind of right.
Yeah, and so they can get away with telling him stuff other people can't because they're so close. You know,
because obviously most of the humor comes from them, like being around them, and there's not actually that much humor in this compared to other Marvel movies. Obviously, some MCU movies have kind of went overboard with just trying to be comedies, and I'm not accusing Thor of that. Thor is a comedy director, that should be a comedy, but. There's other ones where it feels like they force in too much comedy because it's a Marvel movie, there's supposed to be X amount of comedy. Whereas this, it felt a bit more natural in terms of the amount. It kind of worked for what it was.
It felt natural for the characters' interaction. Like Shuri knows, like she's the princess to T'Challa's prince. She'll probably never take the throne, so she needed to drive something. So she became like the tech expert of Wakanda, and she's smarter than him and knows it. So she's constantly, ribbing her older brother that how come you didn't figure this out? Or, hey, I made you a new costume. I know you think you're cool taking your helmet off, but what if you didn't have to?
Yeah, the new costume's very fancy, and what actually... It serves an action purpose because she sets up that it kind of stores kinetic energy, and then you can sort of like give it back out. So... Basically, the way she kind of explains it is like, okay, hit the suit, and he kicks it as hard as he can, and it goes, and it glows kind of purple, like it gives like a purple kind of like almost like veins. There's like purple veins in the suit to sort of show that it's stored some kinetic energy, and then he tries to kick it again, but the suit like gives it back to him, and he goes flying across the room. It's a funny moment, but it's actually really fun for the action sequences because it's used really well throughout, because you can see. Because you can see that he's building up the purple energy. You can see the story in it, and he'll release it in a variety of ways that it's fun.
Which from the comics, as much as I know about vibranium, that's the property. That's what makes vibranium such a unique metal. They also in the Marvel comics have adamantium, which is indestructible. Then you have vibranium, which it's destructible, but it can store energy. So, at one point, Cap's shield ends up being a vibranium hybrid, and that's how it bounces all over the place and whatnot. So
I
I
didn't
like
know.
that they added that into his suit.
I didn't know it was never not vibranium. His shield.
Really? Has it not been? I just thought it was a unique alloy that Stark
I,
created, his dad.
no, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure in the movies it's always been vibranium.
Well, I'll find this out as we start our rewatch of all the movies leading up to Infinity War.
Because I'm sure in Age of Ultron when they're talking about Wakanda for the first time, I'm sure he mentions that his shield's made of it.
Oh, that's right. That's right. But that's all they had.
Yeah, that's
all
like yeah,
power.
they don't have a lot of it for reasons that
Yeah,
are obvious
okay.
in this movie, but yeah.
Okay, well then it's there too. They just don't really address it. And Black Panther, they kind of add that quality to a suit, which I liked.
Uh, so his sister's really likable, and she has her own kind of little arc. Lupita Nyong'o's character, who's kind of the love interest, she has her own arc, and it kind of mirrors the villain's like intentions as well in a really interesting way, which shows that he's not necessarily got his goals ultimately kind of like admirable, but his methods are what
Or what?
yeah,
Yeah.
the methods
Or
are
what
the
makes
wrong
him the
part.
villain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. So she's got a really good arc and she's a strong character. And then okay,
Yeah.
yes.
It's a difficult name because we're not used to,
Do you know what? That's the thing. I'm saying okay, and then I'm like saying yeah after it, and I'm just not used to saying a thing after okay. It's weird, but okay, yeah. So she also has a really strong arc where she's like sort of loyal to him, and she's kind of the what do I compare? She's almost, if I'm comparing her to other characters and other things, kind of like how I compared his sister to Groot. I guess I like to compare her mostly to Drax. Just kind of the tough muscle character who takes everything
but
very
she's got a
seriously.
heart.
Oh, she does,
Yeah.
and she's got more of a sense of humor than I mean.
Well, same with Drax though. Drax has a
Yeah.
heart to that character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Because
I don't want to boil,
stuff.
and I don't want to like diminish all these characters by boiling them down to just they're just this from another movie. I don't really mean that. I just mean like if I'm comparing kind of what she brings to the group, it's kind of the Drax role.
Yeah, because this is an ensemble movie. Like it's called Black Panther, and yes, T'Challa's the main character, and Boseman is the lead. But I'm not shocked, but it was a good shock that how in depth all of these other characters are to the movie. Like it is,
Which is why Kaluuya's character sticks out as being really weak because he's not got that depth, whereas everyone else does. So
Yeah. And so yeah. I mean, you're not. I don't believe you're distilling it down to this. It's just easier in how you compare them to other what we have, especially in an ensemble movie. It's just easier to go to Guardians because that's what it's built around is their relationships.
Yeah, and I mean, I suppose by that comparison, T'Challa's kind of the Star-Lord, and obviously he's a very different character, but in a weird way, he kind of is. Yeah, like there's a couple of moments of humor where he's embarrassed by something, and it almost does feel like a Star-Lord moment where he'll say, "Oh no, let's ignore that," or something like very slight, of course, but it's kind of there in a weird way, and I think that just shows that's how you build an ensemble. You have to have everyone feel kind of different, so they all kind of fill these different roles. And that kind of works. Which I suppose by default that makes Lupita's character the Gamera.
Yeah.
I don't know who's. I guess M'Baku's the Rocket Raccoon.
I mean, well, that's also Shuri. You know what I mean? Shuri is the tech wiseacre. She's Rocket and
Oh,
Groot.
sure. Okay, sure. Yeah, she's Rocket and Groot. Yeah, she embodies both. Okay, sure. I'll accept that.
Yeah, but
yeah, because M'Baku's more the Yondu. You're right. You're right.
Exactly. Oh, M'Baku. Well, we'll talk about M'Baku in the spoiler area because that dude. Everyone's talking about Shuri, but I'm over here being like, yeah, M'Baku's pretty cool though. So
I have to say I connected with Shuri more than M'Baku. I mean, I liked M'Baku.
Of course you would.
But
no, not everybody's like me, Pete. I understand my flaws.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine.
But yeah, we keep talking about all the other ensembles, all these other characters, but I think that Chadwick Boseman really does, not that I don't want to say he doesn't stand out, but he's just kind of the straight man to everybody else. Like, he has a very important role to play, even though he leads the movie, but everyone, he has to play off of everybody else.
Yeah,
They're not
well,
playing off of him.
here's the thing though. Like, even though he's kind of the straight man, he's a straight man with a lot of charisma. Because
Yeah.
sometimes in these stories where you have like such a good surrounding cast, sometimes the person in the middle who's meant to be the straight man can be the most boring one, right?
Yeah.
I don't think he's that at all. He's actually got a lot of charm whenever he speaks to anyone. He's got a lot of just the little moments. He's got what's the word I'm looking for? Gravitas, to sound pretentious as all.
No,
anything.
I would dare say that is not pretentious, because he does, when he speaks, you want to listen to him. Like, he takes that he has a very regal presence to him, and I thought he was probably the standout character for me in Civil War, in the little that he had. Like, he has an important role, but it's Cap and Iron Man, and not so much Panther. So he carried that over here, and I was glad to see Coogler had just took with that and run.
No. So yeah, cast very good. Characters, by and large, very good. We'll talk more about Killmonger in the spoilers, because I feel like all of what I really love about him is spoiler talk. So.
Oh yeah, a lot of what I love about the movie is spoiler talk too. So.
Yeah, which is a testament to actually doing interesting things that maybe we didn't expect. Because I feel like my worry going in was, it's going to be like a Phase 1 movie, so it's going to be a pretty typical origin story, which it kind of isn't, because it's not really the origin of him. It's just kind of like he becomes king, obviously, because in Civil War, his father died.
So up to this point, we'll talk about the spoiler, because it's dodgy. I don't want to spoil it for people that are just tuning in to see our initial thoughts. But there's a character aspect of his that I was sure was something else, and then they rectified that early in the movie. So
okay, that's cool.
But I'll say that.
Actually, here's another worry I kind of had going in. Again, not knowing much about Black Panther, and just having a vague idea. Oh, he's the king of Wakanda, and he married Storm at one point. And like these are what I know. So I typically don't get super into royalty as characters. Obviously, I enjoy Aquaman, but some of my least favorite Aquaman is when he's just in the throne room being a king. That bores the crap out of me. So one of my worries going into this was like, oh, it's going to be kind of like Aquaman when he's just being king of Atlantis, where he's just he's being king, and he's and the times where I don't empathize, or the times where I don't relate to what's going on, is when he's, and this is a few times in the movie. It's not a big deal, because it's not the main point of the movie at all. But like when he becomes king and he tells people like, give us the room, and he tell everyone to get out, and he's being all kind of like charging people around and stuff. That's the stuff where I'm like, okay, I don't really kings, royalty, I don't really care for like, there's nothing about it I find relatable. Luckily, the movie doesn't really focus in on that too much. It focuses in more on all the interesting stuff, I'll say. Yeah. Because that was my one worry. Like, I've never been into like Namor. He's like the king of Atlantis and Marvel, right?
Well, we all know how much you love the Inhumans. And they're a whole real family.
Oh dear, yeah. I mean, I don't necessarily assume that's terrible because of that, but that's certainly that's there as a factor.
It was an easy joke. It was an easy one, but I get what you're saying. I did love the politics of Wakanda and him trying to assume this role, because I always say that's the new leader's like role is to look on what the leaders ahead of him or before him had done, and then try to make his own, standing of it. And I like that T'Challa here really, trying to figure out who he is as a man and as a leader. I really like that aspect. I feel some of the story that surrounded it maybe kind of weighed that down, but I like that it was there.
Because I think that's actually kind of why I hate, like, I mean, obviously there's a lot of reasons to hate the Star Wars prequels, but why I hate the Jedi Council specifically, because those scenes where they're all sitting around, like, discussing what to do, is very much like a royalty scene where they're all sitting in the throne room, like, talking about, oh, what should we do with the people? Oh, all these problems, we control the land, blah, 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 blah. So...
Trade talk.
Yeah, trade disputes and bollocks. But hey, but no, I'm actually really positive in the movie overall. I've obviously I had some complaints, and honestly, most of them are spoiler free. The complaints. I don't think I've got many spoilered complaints. So I think I've got all my complaints out of the way for what I had. So I think with that, we'll give the spoiler warning. So full spoilers from this point on for Black Panther. So here's the big reason why I think this movie's, or why Killmonger is a great villain, right? So essentially the motivation for him, and obviously we get a flashback to what we get the later twist that this is actually, so he's actually the T'Challa's cousin, and T'Challa's uncle was once in the real world. He was in Oklahoma specifically. Was it Oklahoma? No, it wasn't Oklahoma.
Oakland.
Oakland. Thank you.
Two vastly different places, Pete.
You get why I made that mistake. Come on.
Oakland. I got you.
Right.
But which was also funny because Coogler, I think he's from Oakland or he's from the area.
Okay.
So he always tries to put a tie there, which I like because that it's them leaving a fingerprint on this movie.
Yeah, I like it as well because when it started there, I thought, okay, it's starting with some real world stuff before we get to the not magical, but the ultra sci-fi Wakanda. We're getting some grounded. Here's like some just streets in the world to sort of like get your footing in the movie. But so we find and we get the full flashback later on. But basically, his belief. So T'Challa's uncle, he believed that basically once he was out in the real world and he saw how black people were being treated, that he wanted to use Wakandan technology and give them the means to fight back. That was kind of his thing. And the Black Panther at the time, T'Challa's father, was like, hey, no. And it escalated. His uncle, tried to fight back, and he had to kill him. Like, this became a thing where he had to kill his uncle because he was going out of line. And then obviously find out that Killmonger is actually his cousin. It's basically with a... but not a Wakandan woman, women in America.
With an American.
Yeah, they had this son who became Killmonger, and he has this belief too. So his entire motivation when he comes to Wakanda and he like challenges for the throne, and he's like, "Oh, I'll challenge you to combat, and I'll take the throne," is his whole thing is that, hey, you've been hiding here whilst we're oppressed all over the world, and you've done nothing to help. You have the technology to actually give us a means to fight back. Like, what the hell? That is a fascinating motivation, and it's also fascinating from the perspective of our heroes, who then have to question that and say, why haven't we helped in any way? Why have we been hiding? We've kept all these advancements to ourselves. We're living in a goddamn utopia in this bubble that no one can see, and outside we're just kind of turning a blind eye to whatever's going on. I think that is a fascinating concept. It's a fascinating thing to explore.
Well, and the idea that is what drove Killmonger to become the killer that he is, because you see that he went through, he graduated top of his class from the Naval Academy, went through the Navy SEALs, but basically became a mercenary that racked up more kills than anybody else. And this is all basically to get to Wakanda, because he knows, what his heritage is. And I like how that parallels T'Challa, who had always been prepped to become king.
Yeah.
Like he knew, and then the pre-spoiler break, I had always thought he was the first person to become king and Black Panther at the same time.
Oh, really?
I hadn't realized. Yeah, because they make kind of a big deal that he becomes the Panther after his father dies in Civil War. And so I had thought at this point, like, oh, well, this is the first time he could be the Panther and the king. And then you see his father show up in Oakland to talk with, T'Challa's uncle, and you're like, oh, no, okay, well, they actually, this isn't the first time. This is now he's taking on the duty. And so I forgot why I went on that jaunt, but it tied back. It also had to do with the war dogs, who you find out are, Wakanda is isolated, but they have spies all over the place. And his, what was his name? Njobu, the prince, his uncle, he was one of these war dogs, and that's who he saw the worst of the worst in Oakland. And, kind of makes this impassioned plea to his brother. And then when he finds out he's been trading in Wakandan arms, that's not allowed. So, you see how Wakanda has shielded itself, and, maybe T'Chaka could have done something, but chose not to. And I think that makes a perfect villain for Killmonger, because he feels abandoned.
He feels abandoned, yeah. He feels abandoned by the society he lives in, but also the society that he's supposed to be a part of, that he came from.
Yeah.
He feels abandoned by both. And I think it's fascinating to me that Nakia's goals are kind of... Because she's working outside of Wakanda, helping people who are in need around the world. And she's like, oh, I can't stay. Like, we have all these advancements, we could help people, but the rule is that we're not supposed to let anyone know that we exist. So I'm going to go out there and I'm going to help the way I can. and I think early on I was like, okay, the end of this movie has to be them revealing Wakanda to the world. Like I feel that that's where this is naturally going, because partly because in the Infinity War trailer you see like other people who are Wakanda, so I'm like, okay.
And again, I try not to crap on trailers like that, but and we all know, we're all familiar with how these movies are arced and how they're going to end. That said, when Killmonger shows up and he fights to become, it's kind of like, well, we kind of know he's not successful because we saw Cap hide there at the end of Civil War.
Yeah.
And we saw the Infinity War stuff, so T'Challa becomes king again somehow, even if he's deposed. So, kind of builds the tension, although I mean, that's not really a fault of the movie because I feel the movie deals with it very well.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Black Panther was never going to lose it anyway, because that's just that type of movie.
Yeah,
but
like, Killmonger's such that villain. Had he remained king by the end, I would have been like, "Oh, okay, this is the direction we're going now." You
never know, but yeah. So I think Killmonger's motivation is fascinating, and I think it is partly fascinating because it's rooted in a real world issue. It's like, it's not saying, look at this, and what if there was this country on Earth that could potentially completely change the... And obviously by the end of the movie, it's like, no, because he wants to like send out like Wakandan weapons to
he wants
everyone.
To conquer.
Yeah, he wants to militarize people and take over. Yeah. And of course, like, all the heroes are like, no, wait, we don't do that. We're not vicious like that. But ultimately, the decision has to be made by the end by T'Challa and Wakanda as a whole. Like, no, we're going to reveal ourselves because we can actually inspire. We can change the viewpoints. We can like help in other ways. We can share what we know, what we understand, and that might actually have a ripple effect where maybe oppression will not completely be killed by that, but just like it's all of a sudden. You see this advanced civilization, and maybe that changed some opinions. And maybe
let's be the lighthouse. Let's guide their way. Yeah, and you get that vibe from T'Challa because he feels very, even at the beginning of the movie, like he feels like maybe because he's been out to the outside world. He knows what it's like. And it's also
rooted in like just classic superhero stuff. Like it's kind of like the same sort of debate that comes up with maybe say Superman, where it's like. Yeah. Okay, he could physically go around the entire planet, storm into every single military base and take all their weapons. Yeah. He could just... And that's not quite conquering.
Don't let Zack Snyder hear that. Wait, he's fine.
but he could take this almost fascist-like approach to doing it and be like, right, you're better for it. And technically he would be right, but he chooses not to because, no, I need to inspire them to make that choice themselves. It's kind of that... It's rooted in that, but it's also rooted in real-world oppression, which I think makes it really... It gives it layers. It gives it depth. It
does, because I look at Killmonger and I'm thinking, okay, this dude's kind of right. And then you see what he does, and you're like, oh, man. Now I feel bad for kind of siding with him with some of his methods and what he's willing to do.
The best villains, the very best villains, have understandable motivations. Right? Yeah. And that's why, I mean, don't get me wrong, it can be fun when you've just got a mustache-twirling villain who's like, I'm going to take over the world. But... it's always much better when you understand their goals and you see why they feel that way. And you think they're going about it the wrong way, of course, but you understand the motivation. You can't blame them for feeling that way. And I can't blame Killmonger for feeling the way he does.
Oh, no. I can't either. And he, you know what? In another movie, he could be seen as the hero, too. Like, if this is a movie about a revolutionary who storms in and overtakes a country, because he's the best at what he does, then he's the hero more often than not. But up against T'Challa, he's, who's looking for more of a middle way. No, this guy's an extremist.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, again, we're in the world of superheroes. The whole idea of being a superhero is that we can be better. We can strive to not do the obvious thing and be better. And because the speech he gives at the end, it's the mid-credit scene, actually, where he's at the UN and he's, like, revealing... And everyone's just kind of, like, scoffing, like, well, Wakanda's a third-world country. What could you offer us? And obviously, it cuts to Martin Freeman in the crowd just sort of smirking because he's seen everything. He's like, well...
Which, this has made me want to go back and check out the Christopher Priest run, because that's where a lot of this, I guess, came from. I did some reading afterwards on the movie. Really? Yeah, a lot of these sentiments and the Everett Ross character and Killmonger, a lot of these are interesting. That was from the 90s, so 20 years ago. And some of the stuff is still, not part and parcel, but it's still occurring now. And I think that's an important part of the message as well.
Yeah, but no, so I really like that speech at the UN where he's like, no, fools build barricades. Smart, the smart, intelligent people will build bridges. The wise will build
Yep.
bridges, and I like that sentiment. There's a nice strong message in here about moving forwards as a society. There's a lot of good stuff in here. On top of just having the fun superhero action antics
Yeah.
and jumping around
Well,
and explosions.
I felt like this was the first Marvel movie that really put a mirror up to society and was like, this is kind of what's going on, without being too over the top about it. Like, yeah, there are parts of Age of Ultron that had this whole, our sometimes do countries do more harm than good just running into things, but here, because I think it broke it down to the societal level and even more of a personal level, it resonated much more with me. Especially what's been going on here, the last couple of years, just some of the real nasty stuff.
It feels relevant. It feels important to come at a time like it has, and it does feel like a big deal. I'm watching this movie, and it's largely set in Africa. Everyone's got an accent. It's completely all in. There's no shying away from it. And when you do have Martin Freeman, by the way, actually the only accent that kind of bothers me in the entire movie is Martin Freeman. Now he can do accents because when he was in Fargo, I never even questioned it because it's such an over-the-top accent. But here he's doing more of a sort of general American accent, and it feels kind of weird. I'm like, no, that's Martin Freeman. That's Tim from The Office.
Yeah.
Like, he does not sound like this. This is weird.
Yeah.
But hey, he's Mr. CIA man. But if you're watching this big budget movie, and it's got this setting, like you can never have seen this 20 years ago. You would never get this.
Oh no.
And
I'm glad because they tried. Like Wesley Snipes was going to be Black Panther.
Oh god.
Yeah.
that could have been rough. Yeah, that could have been rough. And here's the thing. So you're watching this big budget movie, and they go all in, and I want to commend Marvel. And obviously I've been kind of down the MCU for a little bit. I've not been as excited for them for the last maybe 2.5 years. I do want to commend that they've kind of built this empire where they're at this point where they can get away with this. And that sounds awful that you have to be able to get away with it, but you kind of do. And in a mainstream, movie going world right now, to get a movie like this, to have this budget, to have it break it's the 5th highest opening weekend of all time.
Yeah.
To do this, they had to have a bit of clout. My hope that they've gotten to a point where the Marvel brand sells so much, and this is kind of what I hope Star Wars would do, but they keep avoiding, is taking risks and doing interesting things that haven't been done before, and saying, hey, we can have a film that's like an almost all black cast set in Africa, and it doesn't matter, it'll still do well because it's a Marvel movie, so we can do that, and hopefully that opens other doors. It opens doors for other filmmakers, other actors, other stories, and we can do that. Just kind of like how Wonder Woman was kind of seen as, okay, so now we can have a female superhero movie because one did well.
Yeah.
One proved that it could be done.
But it opens the gate for everybody else.
So my hope is that because of that, other movies coming up don't necessarily just feel like they're part of the formula anymore. Because I think Spider-Man, it started to feel like, okay, so they're going to get a director do a more personal story, and I like that. And then this was a more personal story with all these other factors added in. But as much as Thor's a good funny time, like I did feel like it kind of dipped down again, where I was like, okay, maybe that was like a one thing.
As you said, it was fast food. Like to me, Thor 3 or Ragnarok is like my favorite pizza. Like yeah, it's not nutritionally, but goddamn, I'm enjoying it when I'm eating it. Which is with this, Black Panther and Spider-Man felt like big hearty meals. We're like, oh yeah, like. This was good. I made the right decision. So
yeah. I was going to pick apart that metaphor, but I was going to go on. It's fine. But yeah. So I hope that means that risk taking going forward, and yeah, it made a lot of money. So Black Panther 2 is happening. Black Panther 3 is most definitely happening. And he will be in all the Avengers movies for the next 3 or 4 of them. I guarantee you that. This became a hit. So
he's jumped into my leaderboard of favorite Avengers. I mean, again, we all know I love Thor, but from the time I saw him in Civil War, Black Panther, I was like, that's a fun, cool character. So,
here's the thing. I really like him in the movies now. I don't actually have that much of an inkling to go read the comics, though. I have to say.
Yeah, see, I want to go back and visit the pre stuff because if you watch us on our comics podcast, we talk about pre Deathstroke run, and if it's as good as that, then I think it's worth the time.
I mean, I don't know why,
So
but like I'm looking forward to him now, and you know, Infinity War, which by the way, at the end of the movie when it came up saying Black Panther will return in Infinity War, I'm like, that's weird. That's just a couple of months. Like, that's so
it
close.
is. Well, that was kind of the thing too, and Thor will return in the Avengers. You're like, oh, that's cool. Now we're kind of all numb to it. We're like, yeah, we'll see him.
Yeah,
It's
but at
fine.
least that was a year, so it still felt like a while away.
Yeah,
Whereas this
sure.
is like, oh, this is like, you know, a couple of months and we're already there. But hey, so yeah, so I want to also mention just the virtual reality driving technology, because that was like a big
Yeah.
that was a big action set piece in the movie. Early on in the car chase, they set up that if one of the sensors that they've got gets put in a car, then back in the science lab, his sister can actually go into the little virtual reality bay and drive it from remotely, and that made for a lot of fun stuff where she's kind of involved in the fights, the chase scene, but she's not in danger, and it was like she was being a bit more reckless with the car because she could be,
Yeah.
but she was also talking to Panther the whole time, so there was a lot of fun stuff back and forth. And then it comes back at the end where they set up that Martin Freeman used to be a pilot. That was what he did before he became, you know,
Air
CIA
Force.
operative man, and. So she's like, hey, I've changed the virtual plane cockpit to match what you're used to, but you're flying one of our biplanes. So
Yeah.
you know, shoot down because there's ships leaving with technology for people that Killmonger's setting out. So he's doing all these he's flying around, and that made for fun stuff. It gave him a really interesting thing to do in the final act, which I was not expecting. I was not expecting Martin Freeman to have as big of a role that he did.
Yeah. I like that he was there, and it felt like he wasn't overstepping. Like they were just giving him a role to give him something to do. I like that he was in Wakanda because of something that Panther had done. You know, because it had gone sideways, and
I think it was a fairly important little kind of thing to have in the movie, just to show an outsider looking at the country and being like in awe of it, and like having that perspective. Just for the perspective of, you know, because no one's ever been to Wakanda in real life. It doesn't exist. You know, so having one person there who's like, what's going on, and he's pointing out technology, and he kind of recognises the concept of it, because the rest of the world, they mentioned this at one point, that the rest of the world's starting to catch up. Like, we're getting to a point where they're starting to like get onto all these little IDs and technological feats, but obviously Wakanda's already perfected a lot of it, and he's like, hey, is that this thing? I've heard of this being a functioning thing, but never at this scale and never to this, you know. So it's yeah. So that was a cool idea. Serkis was good. Obviously, he's not long for the movie, but he has a big presence while he's there.
Yeah.
I liked it though because it set up Killmonger, because it was more for him.
It did, and when I say I'm mad, it was just because I was enjoying what he was doing, just chewing up the scenery as this over the top Ulysses Claw with and Serkis was just killing it, and then gets killed unceremoniously by Killmonger, and it's part of his plan. It's what divides Wakanda later in the movie. So yeah, like he'll be missed, Serkis, because it was nice having this big over the top guy. But what are you gonna do?
Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. I mean, anything else you want to talk about?
Earlier I talked about the mythology and how there's these 5 tribes, and I like how each one of them's represented almost in a Power Ranger-esque like color. Like even Nakia is from the River Tribe, and they're all in green. And you have the Border Tribe, who Daniel Kaluuya's character was it Wakabi? They're all in blue.
Yeah, they've got their fancy. They look like they're primitive with their.
Yeah,
because they'll just get basic fabric, but then they hold it out in front of them, and like a sort of a virtual shield comes up. So it's like
like a force field.
Yeah, it's doing this thing where it's making it look like it's a traditional sort of tribe thing, but then it's like, oh no, here's some like high tech stuff that's actually baked into it, and it was a nice contrast. It was a nice contrast.
Yeah,
it felt unique.
And that's to me what they've always done, from what I've heard about the comics, is that's been Wakanda. That it's traditional but futurist at the same time, which is super cool. But I like that each of them are from this different tribe that, the Panther tribe had become the leaders of, and there was this one outsider tribe who's still part of Wakanda, but not, they don't make political decisions, and we get to see them, the Jabari. That's where M'Baku, my boy, comes in.
Yeah, because he challenges T'Challa when he's being,
Yeah.
coronated. Because they do this thing where they take away the
Yep.
powers. They give him like a thing to take away the Black Panther powers and give him it back after. But they have to fight his mortals first. And
M'Baku's this big, huge, massive a man who looks, like he's wearing gorilla skin and whatnot. And it looks like the Jabari worship gorillas, because we see their city later on.
Yeah.
And it's set up that there's this bit of a rivalry between the rest of Wakanda and the Jabari, but
yeah, well,
and he gets defeated and he yields fairly,
Yeah, because he seems to be not as much for the technology. He seems to think everyone's kind of relying on it. So when you see their city, I mean, they've got stuff built, but it's a bit more wooden. It's a bit more. It's less like sci-fi looking and more like fancy tribal looking, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And I love how each of them look all different, and then their whole culture and
I will say
they're the ones.
One of them I'm not too fond of. This is just a personal thing, but the one who have the big piercings where they've got the big circles in their mouth and stuff. That bug that creeps me out. And I feel the same way about how those earrings where it stretches the earlobes out that some people wear. I hate those
Spacers.
too.
Yeah, which
them.
So I'm sure these are all from different African tribes that they drew inspiration from, because I've seen. Like
I've seen like old photos of whatever, like wearing those kind of things. Yeah,
you're talking about like the lip disc and they stretch out the knee, and even the Dora Milaje, the women guard, they look like they're wearing the neck rings of another African tribe. So all that stuff I like that they put in there, but with the Jabari, I like that in the story, T'Challa gets defeated. By Killmonger and gets deposed as king. Gets thrown down. They all think he's dead. But the only place they can really turn to is the Jabari, and they get there, and they basically, because T'Challa had bested him in battle, one-on-one, he kind of, not that he was indebted.
And specifically because he actually told him to yield. He didn't want to kill him. He specifically said, "Hey, yield. I don't have to kill you. Just end the fight. Just yield, and we can end this." And so he's like, "No, life for a life. You kind of save mine, essentially, by not forcing me to die." Because I think in that context, no one would bat an eye if he did just kill him, because it's combat. Yeah. So.
Exactly, and so I liked what it did with the story there. That these were always the outsiders, and it was kind of the fact that they were the outsiders is what eventually preserves Wakanda.
And
it unifies everybody.
Yeah, and I like that just from a character standpoint, like him making the choice that he doesn't want to kill M'Baku in that fight. It's just that first sign early on. I mean, obviously you see that he's quite likable, and you have the little joke where he freezes when he gets to Lupita Nyong'o's character in the because it was a joke where. He's like, "No, don't freeze. Make sure you don't freeze." Like, I won't freeze, and then he completely freezes. So it gives you a little bit of humour to make you like him. But I think as a hero, as a character, the fact that he intentionally goes out of his way not to kill his opponent is like, okay, no, this is superhero 101. Set up your character's morals, and that does that quite easily.
And then that sets up Killmonger, who he's the ultimate killer, and he takes killing blows on T'Challa in this ritual fight, which and that was T'Challa's mistake, was he doesn't. He asks Killmonger to yield when he has him early in the fight, and Killmonger doesn't, which ultimately is T'Challa's downfall. So I like, again, it's a nice tight story to go with all of these characters, and they weave in and out almost effortlessly. Like, I never felt like any of this was like it has to happen. I felt like that's just where the story was taking me. So, yeah.
No, it's very good. I guess we're getting to that time where we're going to rate it then. Really good. So, what are you giving it out of 10, Matt?
So for me, this is an unprecedented 9 for a Marvel movie.
I was going to say, how's that unprecedented? Oh, for a Marvel movie, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I tend to throw out 8s and 5s. I was looking back over, some of the other ratings I've given, but letting it sit for a day, it's definitely, I come out and I'm like, oh man, that was a 10. That was fantastic. But, you sit and you talk and stuff, but it's still...
That shows how you get hype yourself up, right? Because,
I do.
Because I'm the opposite. I come out of a movie usually lowballing it until I think about it for a while.
Oh, no. No, I come out and if I really... I mean, again, go back and watch our Kong Skull Island review.
Oh
Like I
God.
came out of that. Yeah, like
Oh, gee. I'll tell you this right now. When we do our top tens, which we're a few weeks away from doing that, we'll be doing that
yeah,
early March. All our top tens of the year.
yeah,
Connor will be joining us for that as well. Um,
yeah.
you're going to have Kong ridiculously high. I know you are, and it's going to be
I'm not gonna
just.
deny.
It's going to be such an out of place movie amongst everything. Even on your own list, it's probably going to feel out of place with everything else. It's
Oh,
probably.
if my top five was a dartboard, I'd have 0 points because it's all over. Like not even close. So yeah.
Yeah. So top 10 movies of 2017. That is for the record, folks. We're doing our awards.
So this one's not. This is not eligible.
Oh, this is 2018. This will be next time's awards.
Exactly.
So no, for me, I think I'm going with an 8.5. I think I came out feeling like an 8, and the more I've talked about it, the more I've thought about it. I really like all the themes it's doing. There is still that kind of like Marvel like sort of sheen to it, where okay, we have to have the big armies fight at the end, and that's why I feel like Kalia's character's kind of thin. Because he's just kind of there to facilitate that and have the opposing army to be in the fight. But so there's a few thin elements like that. But for the most part, I think the villain's one of the best in the MCU. I think his motivations are complex and layered, and because of that, it's easily one of the more fascinating stories in terms of the story of T'Challa and Wakanda as a whole, kind of along with them, making the choice to sort of reveal themselves to the world because they can't just stand by and do nothing anymore. It's kind of, again, to compare it to Superman in a broad sense, it's, I've been in hiding for 20 years until I make the choice to put on that outfit and go out and start saving people. I've been in hiding. I've been keeping my powers to myself until, it's time to catch Lois Lane and she can say, who's got you? It's kind of that. So 8.5 for me. Black Panther, one of the better Marvel movies in a while. This and Spider-Man are definitely my two favourite from the last like 2 or 3 years. Without much effort. So. Alright, so there you go. That is the Black Panther review. So let us know what you thought of the movie in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all the usual stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the channel and the show, head over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv. There's a link in the description down there to that. Obviously we do other me and Connor typically do the classic movies. Me and Matt once a month do 121 Overload, which our patrons vote on which movie to do. That's still to come this month. But yeah, so you look out for all that other stuff, but that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching movies, guys, and we'll see you next time.